We are animals. We're biological creatures, and that dictates what our real needs are. We need clean air. We need clean water, clean soil that gives us our food, and clean energy that comes from the sun. If we don't have that, we die. We've estranged ourselves from that reality. Indeed, we don't even like to be reminded that we're biological creatures. If you say to someone, "Man, I watched you at the party last night, you are an animal," that's an insult, because we don't like to acknowledge that we're animals. If you call someone a chicken or a snake or a worm or a pig or a monkey, these are all words of insult, because we think that somehow we're different, we're superior to that. I was at a shopping center one day and I saw a sign that said, "No animals allowed." I thought, boy, if you were a biologist and observed that, you wouldn't have many shoppers either. We are animals. And as animals, that dictates what our real bottom line is. But we're more than just biological creatures. We're also social animals. And as social animals, we have needs which, if they're not met, mean that we can't live full, rich lives. And as I've looked over the scientific literature, the amazing thing that I found was to be fully human, to have a rich opportunity. The one important social need we have is love. I mean that in the most scientifically profound way. If we look at the literature of children who've grown up in Cambodia under the reign of terror, in Rwanda during that terrible genocide, in Bosnia or in Romania, what you find is that children who are fed, clothed, and sheltered, but who are not held and kissed and told they're loved, are fundamentally crippled psychically and physically. They die way sooner than children who grow up with love. Love is a process, a reciprocal process between us and who is loving us. And in the process of loving and being loved, we learn to empathize. We learn to care about others. We learn to be fully human. But we're more than biological creatures and social animals. We're also spiritual beings. And here's something that a lot of scientists are very reluctant to talk about. But I don't think there's any question that if we have a need today, it is a need for spirit. The dilemma we face is that we have come to assume such a dominant position that we're carrying the whole weight of the planet on our shoulders. What we need is a far greater sense of spirit and our connection with nature. We need to know that we emerged out of the natural world and remain embedded in it. And when we die, and that terrible recognition that we are mortal, we receive comfort in knowing that we'll go back to nature that gave us birth. We need to know that there are places on this planet that are not just opportunities or commodities or resources, that there are sacred places. We need to have that sense, that understanding, that there are special places that we go to with respect. These days, if you look at the media, if you listen to the pundits, the media columnists, the politicians, they say over and over like a mantra, the economy is the bottom line. The economy is the source of everything that matters. We've got to sacrifice for the sake of the economy. We've got to give up social services for the sake of the economy. The economy has become reified, created into some kind of entity. It's like, you know, being back in the Middle Ages when they sacrificed virgins against the dragons or the ghosts. Now it's the economy. So we all kind of tremble when the economy's in trouble, and we celebrate when the economy is booming. And we've created this notion that the economy is the source of everything that matters. And I think that really overlooks a far more fundamental reality. If you talk to an economist and say, well, what is it that makes up an economy? They'll flash a slide up on the wall and say, now this is the economy. And it looks impressive, you know, their raw materials, extraction, processing, manufacture, wholesale, retail, with all kinds of arrows and things. And the idea is that if you know what all the components of an economy are, then you can manage it by putting a tax incentive here or a disincentive here and keep the whole thing going. But if you say to the economist, in that diagram, where do you put the ozone layer? Where do you put the deep underground aquifers of fossil water? Where do you put topsoil or biodiversity? You know what their answer is? Oh, those are externalities. An externality is something that's not in the economic equation. So you externalize the real world, you might as well be on Mars. It's got nothing to do with reality. The reality is the Earth is at the center of our very existence and makes an economy possible. Bob Constanza and his group of ecological economists set out to say, what would it cost us if we tried to replace all of the services that nature does for nothing? If we wanted to filter the water so we don't depend on the old-growth forest to filter our watersheds, what would it cost us to build a plant? Now, there's lots of things we couldn't even do. We couldn't possibly replace all of the pollinating insects. But we can make a crude estimate. What would it cost us to make technology to remove carbon dioxide from the air and put oxygen back into it? About $33 trillion a year is what it would cost us to do what nature's doing for nothing. Nature is producing twice as much service for us as the collective economies of all the countries in the world. And economists say those are an externality. They've got nothing to do with it. Well, every time you destroy a part of nature, we then have to pay to replace it. This is our home. This is where we were born. This is where we belong. And if we think we're just going to expand forever, destroy this earth and go somewhere else, what does that say about us as a species? Now, the dangerous part about this belief that we've got to have steady growth forever is that it drives us on a suicidal path. And I illustrate it in a very simple way. I'm going to give you a test tube that's like the earth, full of food for bacteria. Going to put one bacterial cell in, and every minute that bacterium is going to divide, okay? So at the beginning, there's one cell. 1 minute, there are 2 cells. 2 minutes, there are 4. 3 minutes, there are 8. This is exponential growth. At 60 minutes, the test tube is completely packed with bacteria, and there's no food left. When is the test tube half full or half empty? 59 minutes. So at 58 minutes, 25% full. 57 minutes is 12.5%. At 55 minutes of a 60-minute cycle, it's 3% full. Now, if one of the bacteria at 55 minutes says, I've been thinking, we got a population problem, the other bacteria would say, what the hell are you talking about? 97% of the test tube's empty, and we've been around for 55 minutes. And they'd be 5 minutes away from filling it. So at 59 minutes, they finally go, oh my God, we're in trouble. We've got 1 minute left and we're going to run out of food. So they set out, let's invest in all these biotechnologists and genetic engineers and computer experts. So they invent 3 test tubes full of food. So they're saved, right? They've now quadrupled the amount of food in space. What happens? 60 minutes, first one's full. 61 minutes, the second's full. 62 minutes, all 4 are full. So by quadrupling the amount of food in space, you buy 2 extra minutes. And when the biosphere is fixed, no amount of scientific megaproject is going to increase the amount of air, water, or soil. And most biologists I talk to believe we're long past the 59th minute.